This working group is about cooperation. So let's be clear from the beginning, a little bit of competition isn't all bad, but I think you would all agree that sharing data, building large projects, cooperate is far better than being always in the competition in terms of medicine and science. So the key word of this session will be cooperation. So I think the ultimate goal of this session is establishing a European CMT Research Association. So I guess we will reach this goal. We'll try at least. Simon, if you want to say a few words. Or?
Hello. Well, good morning, everyone. I think it's been a wonderful day yesterday where we got to meet everyone. And I think now today is the day for doing some work, and I think doing some more work, I should say. I think we have a great opportunity here. This conference can be a kickstart to bringing a European research group together, working together, and doing the best for our patients. Yeah, thank you.
So I think the first speaker will be Teresa Sevilla Montecon. Welcome. Just housekeeping. We have decided to have a general discussion after the three talks, if everybody agrees with this.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. Bonjour. I'm going to start with my presentation. The first question I do myself is what do patients need? I think that the first thing that patients need is a clinical diagnosis. It seems easy, but it's not always easy because frequently patients visit different specialists to arrive at a correct diagnosis. Even for experts, sometimes it's difficult, especially in sporadic and late onset forms. For us, diagnosis sometimes is a challenge because some types of CMT can imitate acquired neuropathies, inflammatory neuropathies. Genetic diagnosis is important to reduce uncertainty in patients, to try to establish the natural evolution of the disease and prognosis, and to give them a prognosis, to give genetic counseling, and to offer the possibility of pre-implantation diagnosis if requested, for all to start working on understanding the mechanism of the disease and to think how can treat the disease. Genetic diagnosis, we don't know the genetic diagnosis in around 10% of demyelinating forms, around half of CM2 or axonal forms, and around 2/3 of predominant motor forms. So we have many work to do, and we have to discover new causal genes. We are a clinical research group, and we work with geneticists and biologists, but our focus of investigation is in phenotyping and do correlations between phenotypes and genotypes, because we think it's important to study the pathogenesis. That is the main question, the difficult to answer, how to discover new genes. The exome is all investigated, but we have many patients without diagnostic. How to discover, but I think we can gather in families with a similar phenotype profile, because an isolated research group have few families with 2 or more affected without diagnosis. In this way, by collecting families from the same country or from different countries, the probability to improve the genetic diagnosis increases exponentially. This is a field in which we can establish clinical research synergies between our country and between different countries. 1 + 1 is not 2. In this case, it can be 3 or more. Synergies. How to establish synergies is the question of all the meeting, in the meeting. We need to create a network between clinicals and basic research. And say this is easy, but probably after this meeting, it is likely that we will each go back to our chorus and in Spain, our group, Rafa and myself, our group is committed to leading the CMT project to collect families without a genetic diagnosis, of course, after panel or exoma study. How to expand the network? We can expand the network through national groups, doing meetings with national people that work in CMT. Most of us belong to the ERN, and we also belong to Inherited Neuropathy Consortium. The other question is if we have the possibility of using database from the same platform. In ERN, we have the RedCap, that is a big platform that you can introduce registries. I'm talking about Spain, what our strengths and our weaknesses. Our strength is that there are motivated and well-trained neurologists in CMT, these that are writing in the slide, but and others. We have a good support from our national network of rare disease, CIBERER, for genetic studies and other collaborations with basic research. But we are not only dedicated to genetic neuropathies. We have to pay our general neurology fee. And the conclusion is that we need more human resources. Regarding to mechanisms of disease, we can collaborate with other groups in Spain and in Europe with samples that they need, etc. We have regarding to gene modifiers, that is very important because we know patients with the same mutation, even in the same family, that have different phenotypes in severity, not in profile, but just in severity. And we have many patients with founder mutations, and we can study inter and intrafamiliar variability. For example, we have more than 20 patients with this mutation in the north of the Valencian community, and we have nearly 50 with this mutation in this area. So clinical researchers and basic researchers have joined forces, and also with the patients, which are the driving force of our research. My proposals is to resume that the most important thing to know that we are doing here now is that we are here to collaborate with any clinical or basic research group in the way that you can need by collecting families and with sharing samples or other things if you need. And we only need to write us an email and contact. Sometimes if we don't know, respond the first time, you have to do it a second time because sometimes we lose the emails. So I hope that this meeting could be useful to reach the top for patients and for everybody is to find a treatment. And in the next meeting, we could have clinical trials and we can find some treatments. I don't know if we can't, I think we can and we will. This is my thank you for your attention, and this is my group. Rafa is not there because the photo was taken before Rafa came to our hospital, and the person most motivating with research that is Vincenzo now is not with us because the problems with the contracts and the work, the same that happen in other places. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your talk, and we'll discuss all together after the 3 talks. Very interesting and very stimulating. So the second speaker will be Lisa Reinecke. Thank you.
So good morning, everyone, and welcome to this cooperations workshop. First of all, I would like to thank you for the kind invitation to this conference and really perfect organization here in beautiful Paris. I'm honored to have the opportunity to contribute to this great conference on CMT, so to fight with you together against CMT, and with the aim to establish an European CMT Research Association. And my name is Lisa Reinecke. I'm from Göttingen, Germany, and I will talk about my experience as a network manager of CMT, the German network on CMT. I'm here with Professor Sereda, the coordinator of the network, who has to apologize because he turned ill, unfortunately. Okay. So I would like to start about the history of how and why CMTNet evolved. It's better now? Okay, sorry. So about how and why CMTNet was founded. It evolved from a formerly funded biomarker consortium funded by the BMBF, that is the abbreviation for the German Federal Ministry of Education and Research, with the title Biomarker Validation CMTA Patients, led by Michael Sereda, in which the clinical centers in Göttingen, Münster, and Munich worked together for the first time to overcome the underrepresentation of the disease at German academic institutes. There still was a lack of standardization and collaboration, and this is why CMTNet was founded in 2013. In the next years, the grant application was prepared, so again at the BMBF, and more clinical centers were added to reach a better availability for patients here in Würzburg and Aachen, so together now 5 centers. And we gathered interdisciplinary experts from different and complementary techniques, so in vitro, mouse, fly, chick, genetics and pharmacology approaches, and also therapeutic approaches, by having a 50% female scientific team leader rate. So we installed a web page to increase the visibility, especially for patients, but also as a communication platform for our scientists and clinicians. So the funding period by the BMBF was from 2016 to 2019, and the focus was primarily on CMTA, the most common subform you all know, but not exclusively on CMTA. And we had a strong translational approach, so to transfer findings from bench to the bedside. Here you see the CMTNet structure with the map of Germany with the 5 centers I already mentioned. And it was, as I already mentioned, it was coordinated or is coordinated by Professor Michael Sirida, assisted by me as a network manager. And the coordination, or the coordinators are Medi Walter in Munich, Professor Peter Young in formerly Münster, now Bad Feinbach, and Professor Rudolf Martini in Würzburg. It comprises 3 service structures: the coordination unit in Göttingen, where I work, a patient registry led by Professor Walter in Munich, a biobank, 3 clinical structures: a natural history structure, a biomarker study, and study regarding pregnancy outcome in CMT, 8 research projects from basic science to preclinical trials, and 3 core facilities: next generation sequencing, proteomic facility, and EM facility, to include technical expertise for the projects. So this is a structural communication flowchart of CMTNet, demonstrating the communication inside the network and also to the external world. And you see here that as one, this is the coordination unit, serves as an important interface between communicating with the BMBF, or the funding agency, scientific advisory boards, treat NMD, patient organizations, and other networks. And it is also important to maintain an effective communication network within CMTNet. So the patient registry here, for example, recruits patients for the clinical studies, and the clinical studies in turn give data to the patient registry. The studies work in close collaboration with the biobank, and the biobank also delivers samples for the research project and vice versa. And everything is supported by the core facilities. So you see, it is not only an effective network sharing expertise, but also data, services, and samples. Okay, here are the aims of CMTNet. It's the first one to examine mechanisms of the disturbed axon-glia interaction and new nerve vulnerability in CMTA using transgenic fly, chick, mouse, and rat approaches, so multiple approaches. Second, to identify genetic modifiers and non-genetic risk factors in CMT. Third one, to identify and validate novel targets to rationally design preclinical therapeutic approaches in CMT. Fourth, to identify and validate outcome measures, which are missing still in children and adults with CMT, including biomarkers from blood. Fifth, to establish a skin biopsy biobank, also for blood samples for CMT patients. And the last one, to establish a harmonized patient registry. So this is, sorry for this really complex slide, but I will guide you through it. This slide illustrates the aims of CMTNet. To identify the risk factors of disease burden and to enable to translate findings in animal models to patients. So by investigating genetic factors and non-genetic factors using the different approaches I'm already talk about, we wanted to validate novel or find and validate novel targets, to design preclinical trials to develop outcome measures in blood and in skin, and also to establish the patient registry and to the biobank. So next slide is about the patient registry. It is a really important objective within CMTNet. It is led by Maggie Walter in Munich, as already said. And it is so the patients self-register, and then they go to a neuromuscular center, one of the centers within CMTNet, so Munich, Münster, Göttingen, or Aachen, and the clinical report is filled in by neurologists. That is how it works. And the registry contains an internationally harmonized minimal data set, allowing for disease characterization and trial planning, trial readiness. These are the aims. And you see that now the register has about more than 2,000 patients. And within the CMTNet funding periods, research questions regarding natural history, gender aspects, and healthcare data were implemented, which led to these publications. And the natural history data will be published soon. I will only briefly cover the natural history study to assess symptom variability in CMT patients over 3 years. We aimed to recruit 200 patients via the registry, mostly, and they came to us every year for 2 years and 3 visits to monitor disease progression. And it's the largest prospective study with 200 patients in Germany, covering 16 different examination scores, and some are displayed here. So again, the manuscript is in preparation. This is the biomarker study, which more or less went hand in hand with the natural history study. Most of the patients also gave samples, and it was the same timeline, so 3 visits within 2 years to validate the published skin biomarkers and to also obtain more blood samples to establish and validate blood biomarkers. And also the registry was used for recruitment. Okay, here are the biobank. We have 450 CMT blood samples, well characterized, and also longitudinal samples. Then we have about 50 control samples from healthy controls, also longitudinal. We have skin samples. We had a pre-existing stock of about 100 CMT1 samples, and within CMTNet, within CMTNet, about 60 new samples could be added. As in the beginning, I mentioned that we had a strong focus on translational research, and this is a really nice example how it could work. The results of our preclinical study using phospholipids in the CMTA-RED model as a therapeutic strategy could be successfully published in Nature Communications and were widely distributed through our CMTNet channels and also the patient organizations. And in turn, many patients contacted us with the question how to use lecithin or phospholipids, like here proposed in the preclinical study. And that is why we teamed up with the DGM and also the HMSN Forum. And we created a kind of steering committee. So we discussed outcome measures, we discussed the trial design, the importance of the study, and really to collaborate on this project. And so we set up here this CMP lipid trial and applied for funding, but unfortunately so far we did not receive any. But nevertheless, we will follow on the project and never give up hope. So these are the cooperations CMTnet has. I mentioned with the DGM, this lipid trial was only one example. We collaborated with the European CMT Federation and also European patient organizations in many grant applications to work together, because it's essential to implement patients' needs. We are a sister consortium of the INC, and Michael takes part in the natural grant rounds. We have contacts to the US patient organizations, the HNF and CMTA. We are part of the ERN, and the registry is implemented in the TREAT NMD network, and we also collaborate with the German network on HSP. Okay. So what happened after the funding period? Because we are not funded, we were not funded afterwards. We had no second funding period, only 3 years. And unfortunately, the BMBF has changed the focus of the cause, so we could not apply anymore. Now the aim was to maintain the core facilities, so the coordination as a unit for patient request, also the registry and the biobank. We collaborated with the industry, who used our established structures. For example, also, I mean the coordination and also the registry to conduct these studies, and we were supported by them, so we could maintain a bit. As already told, we always try to apply for grants, so the annual EJP RD calls, and also, as already told, we applied for funding for our lecithin trial. We are now in progress to establish in German ein Verein, a CMTnet association, and we are now working on the web page just to give a new design and a new logo. Yeah, this is how it looks. You're the first ones to see it. So something has happened. I also want to talk, or to briefly talk about good ideas from further applications. So here within the EJP RD card, because we are in the cooperation workshop, I thought to present a nice management concept. This is from a grant by Maurizio D'Antonio. So to have a layered structure of the different levels. A steering level involving patients' organizations and advisory board, a management level, coordinate and work package leaders, and an operation level, the work packages and expert groups with distinct responsibilities and tasks. So what I think it's always a good idea to apply good management tools within a huge network. So for example, Basecamp or Slack, maybe you already know them. I did not work with them, I have to confess, but other networks do, and they seem to really be effective. So, and I think it's really important to have really regular monthly subgroup meeting and annual in persona meetings. To scale this a bit up, because we are talking now about an ECRA, so I was searching on the internet about structures, and you find many things. I found it's just an example, the ERDEC, the International Rare Disease Research Consortium, which was launched in 2011. Just as an example how it could work, so the management or the government structure is consisting of a consortium assembly, an operating committee, constituent committees of the funders companies, patient advocates, and scientific committees, diagnostics, therapies, regulatory and interdisciplinary committees, aided by ad hoc task forces and working groups, so with distinct responsibilities and collaboration strategies. Okay, so with this slide, I would like to end my talk. This is the CMT-Net team, photographed on one of our meetings in Munich 2018. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. That was impressive. And I think it's a very good example of cooperation at the national and let's expand this to European level. So next talk would be given by, Tim van Ganswinkel.
Yeah,
sorry if
that's
I
right.
misspelled it. Thank you.
Can you all hear me? Yeah, okay. Okay, good morning, everyone. So first of all, thanks for the kind invitation to invite our group here. It was very inspiring so far. I was asked by the organizing committee to replace Gianni, who wasn't able to come, unfortunately. And I was asked to talk about how to boost the cooperation on CMT in Europe. So the last year, I also attended the CMTA and the PNS for the very first time. I had to say that this was a very inspiring and enriching experience to see how patients, researchers, clinicians, but also industry partners work together and connect. This is actually the same feeling that I have from this meeting, and it's really great to see. The CMT community creates a dynamic environment, and there's a shared commitment of all of you in finding a therapy for all forms of CMT. So the right mindset and drive is actually already there to cooperate in this area. So let me first start by introducing our team. I think we're relatively new in the field, and maybe most of you don't know us. But this is the team that is represented here. So we have our lab PI, Esther Wolfs, and then Natalie, our PhD student in the lab, who is working, and she presented the poster and working on dental pulp stem cells as a new patient in the dish model for CMT1A. And I'm the postdoc in the group. So we are from Belgium, and we are located, or we are working or active in the Biomedical Research Institute at Hasselt University. It's the smallest university. I don't know if the pointer works. So it's located here. It's the smallest university in the Flemish-speaking part of Flanders, next to Antwerp, Leuven, and Ghent. We're located in Limburg, close to the border of Germany and the Netherlands. So, sorry. It's not about the science, but I quickly want to say what we do in our group. So we focus on CMT1A. We work with different models. As I said already, we work with patient-derived human dental pulp stem cells, and with patient-derived iPSCs and animal models. And in our research, we have different research lines where we aim to develop new research tools to study disease and models. Focus on lysosomal stress, ER mitochondrial contacts, which you also heard yesterday in some talks, which are very important, the lipid metabolism, but also disturbances in the plasma membrane, and therapies for CMT1A. So on the national level, if we talk about collaboration, so we are relatively new. So nationally, we try to collaborate with Vincent Timmerman, who you all know, and Ludo van den Bos. So that being said, the aim of this workshop is to come with some, come up with some ideas or guidelines for patients and scientists, clinicians, and other health professionals and industry partners, and how they can synergize their efforts in the overall goal to improve the quality of life of CMT1A patients. And as a researcher only working on CMT for just a few years, it was difficult to talk from my own experience on this particular topic. But I tried to come up with some action points that may be relevant to work on. Some of these discussion points already popped up during the meeting, and it would be good to get your specific input and ideas on this after this talk or session. So first we have the collaborations. It is important to engage the different stakeholders in a CMT research consortium or consortia. In this collaborative network, all partners can connect and collaborate. A lot of you already work together, but I think collaborations can be stimulated even more. The established networks are more on a national and regional level, I think, so it would be good to also boost collaborations across borders and also overseas with renowned CMT research institutions, clinical centers, hospitals, and other organizations, not only within Europe, but also globally. The exchange of knowledge, expertise, and resources can accelerate research efforts, contribute to the global initiatives, and attract international funding opportunities. So CMT research requires also a multidisciplinary approach, I think, so also focus on interdisciplinary collaborations and connect with experts from various fields such as genetics, neurology, biochemistry, pharmacology, physical therapy, and also rehabilitation medicine. This interdisciplinary collaboration can lead to a better understanding of CMT and the development of more effective therapies. So importantly, we should also focus, sorry, I missed this. Importantly, we should also focus on initiating collaborative research projects among the different researchers. So, as a next step, we also should encourage the initiation of clinical trials for potential treatments, therapies, and interventions, collaborate with different regulatory bodies, pharmaceutical companies, and patient advocacy groups to streamline the process and ensure the safety and efficacy of experimental interventions. If clinical trials for potential CMT therapies are being conducted, then we should establish coordination and communication mechanisms among the different researchers, clinicians, but also the trial sites. This will also help to streamline the recruitment process, share best practices, and optimize the trial design to improve chances of success. As a next step, I think it's also very important to invest in training programs and education for researchers and clinicians working on CMT, or to encourage young researchers to enter the field. So we should provide mentorship, scholarships, and also research opportunities for these people. This will ensure a strong pipeline of talent dedicated to advancing CMT research and developing therapies on the long term. Next, it's also important to increase public awareness about CMT by organizing campaigns utilizing social media platforms, but also engaging with social media. Advocate for increased governmental support and policies that prioritize rare disease research such as CMT. Related to this, we can also create and develop online platforms, forums, or communities dedicated to CMT research and collaboration. So these platforms can serve as a virtual space where researchers, clinicians, and therapists can connect, share information, and collaborate irrespective of the geographical boundaries. Next, we should also engage patient advocacy groups, attract individuals living with CMT and their families in the research process. This is also being discussed in a parallel session, but I think it's important to mention here because it also helps in cooperation, because their insights and experiences can provide valuable perspectives and help prioritize research goals. So we should establish mechanisms for this patient's involvement, such as patient advisory boards, to gain insights into their experiences, to ensure that research efforts are patient-centered and that research outcomes are aligned with the patient's needs. Then we have what we are doing already is to organize regular meetings, conferences, seminars, and workshops focused on CMT research and treatment. And these gatherings provide opportunities for researchers, clinicians, and other health professionals to exchange ideas and present their work and form collaborations. So we should encourage, as I already said, multidisciplinary participation and next, we should develop and enhance our research infrastructure, such as specialized CMT clinics, patient registries, biobanks, and genetic testing facilities, for example. These resources can facilitate data collection, sample storage, and genetic analysis, enabling researchers to conduct studies and clinical trials effectively. Not to forget also the core facilities we have to help the researchers with their work. Another thing or an important topic that popped up yesterday very often is the funding, so the lack of funding we have in the field. So we should all collaborate on grant application and funding proposals to secure the resources for CMT research. By combining expertise and resources, researchers and clinicians can develop stronger grant applications that have a higher chance of success. So seek for funding opportunities from governmental bodies, research organizations, and philanthropic foundations that support neurological research. So we should promote the allocation of resources specifically for CMT research, including grants and fellowships. On the long term, it's also important to establish some strategic plans and goals for CMT research. So establish coordinated efforts to tackle specific research questions, prioritize therapeutic targets, and allocate resources effectively. Long-term planning fosters continuity, allows for better resource management, and ensures sustained focus on finding therapies for all types of CMT. Lastly, also a very important part here is open science, so we should encourage these practices by stimulating the sharing of research findings, clinical data, protocols, but also methodologies through open access platforms. We should establish these databases or repositories to store and share CMT-related data. Also, some of these things have been mentioned already in the talks yesterday, such as genetic information, clinical profiles, but also treatment outcomes. Open data sharing facilitates also collaborations, enables metadata analysis, and helps to identify commonalities among different CMT subtypes. Also, this is discussed in a parallel session, so we will not talk about this in more detail now. So by implementing these strategies, we aim to facilitate and strengthen CMT research in Europe. Establishing structured cooperation and synergies takes time and effort, collaboration, but also coordination among the various stakeholders. It requires strong leadership, effective communication, and a strong commitment to the common goal of finding effective therapies for all CMTs, as said before. Now, some of these strategies, maybe I've already said this, but they overlap and are connected. And to get more structure and coherence and really have an impact on the long term, it's important that we unite, and as we already discussed this, maybe the European CMT Research Association may play an important role in this process. It can maximize the impacts that we have on research outcomes to the CMT community and society. And as Mary Riley yesterday also said, maybe we can even see this bigger than Europe alone, but maybe Europe can be a leading role in the world. So here are some specific examples. So what is necessary for a European Research Association? It's important to build a team. We have to formalize the association, and we need long-term planning and coordination. So it is important to develop programs and services the association will offer to its members. We have to define specific goals and objectives for the association, so we need to have a mission. And to take action, it is important to create a task force or work groups that can help to establish this. So we can also learn a lot from other organizations like the CMTA, and I think Catherine Forsey will tell something about this later today, but also about the talk from Lisa about the German CMT net. So this is just an example, and this was also provided by the rapporteur, Sabrina, who couldn't be here today. So we should have a governance board, as you can see here, with 4 main domains, which can have a coordinator. We should have an advisory board with all stakeholders, patient associations, but also the experts, and a scientific committee. We have 2 main goals, which is basic and translational research, but also clinical trial readiness. So we can have different task forces, and these are just a few examples how this can be, which focus on 1, pathophysiology, animal models, human cell models, but also therapeutic strategies. And if you look at clinical trial readiness, we can have a task force focusing on natural history, biomarkers, outcome measures, but also biobanking is a very important step here. Then we have the task force focusing on data management, dissemination, but also sustainability on the long term. This is again quickly an overview about the governance or how the board can look like. So the board is in charge of key strategic plans. Like, as I said, we really need to define visions, objectives, aims. What is our mission? What is the strategy, trusts, goals, and tactics and orientation? And then there's an advisory board focusing on which provides current knowledge, critical thinking, and analysis to scientific committee and governance board, and review the quality and the relevance of scientific and technical information. We will also have a scientific board, as suggested, which is involved in strategic guidance and direction for research and scientific program for researchers. So for the specific domains and the task force, it can be organized in those 4 domains, which are led by a specific coordinator or task force leader. And here, again, you see them summarized. So this is just an idea, and I think we can learn from a lot of other organizations on how to implement this in Europe and how to boost the cooperation on the long term. So now, in the next part, we want to do some brainstorming and get some input from you, how we can work on these action points and what are the most critical points on the short term to work on and to have an effect in the upcoming year. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Perhaps to start the discussion, you can come back to the general slide, just 2 slides before. It could be a basis to start general discussion if some of you want to express.
I just have a comment. EFM developed a laboratory called Charcot in 1990. Its initial goal was to sequence the genome. And since Geneton moved to gene therapy, but people forgot that we still have a biobank in Geneton, which includes more than 400,000 samples, including hundreds of samples of CMT, and with a huge expertise in 2 services. One is purifying DNA for genetic analysis, and the other one is storing blood samples and PBMC, either immortalized for DNA extraction or non-immortalized to build cell models such as iPS. And I have met lots of even American researchers saying that maintaining their collection of samples was very expensive and complicated. So just for you to know, Geneton Biobank is available. It's relatively very cheap compared to other places. You will own your collection, but we can provide this kind of service of storing your DNA sample and blood sample. So if it can help the network, think about it.
Thank you for your comment. Any more comment from the...
So my name is Susan Rudiger, and I'm the co-founder of the CMT Research Foundation. And I think the way that you all are thinking about this is really smart, because what we want to do is assess the landscape and then understand where the gaps are, and then understand what the CMT Research Association could really take on. Because I think it's such a big challenge that we have in front of us, and all these, I mean, if you go back to that slide with the ovals on it, I look at that, it's like, wow, I don't know if anybody else looks at that and says that's overwhelming. That feels very overwhelming and huge to me. I do agree that these are all of the challenges that need to be addressed, but I think if we understand what are the most urgent challenges and then prioritize them, that it would be easy to be effective. That was or easier to be effective. That was my takeaway from the CMT net in Germany. Like, they knew what they wanted to do, and they did it. They knew exactly, like, they prioritized, knew what they wanted to do, and they did it. I think some of these things are huge and long-term goals, and some of these things are very actionable right away. And I think as an organization, if we could put down the priority, like what we see as the priority. What do we think with our bandwidth? Because it's bandwidth, right? Bandwidth and funding. What do we think with our bandwidth we could really accomplish? And then to home in and focus on that, I think we'll have the greatest success. Yeah. If we try to take on this entire slide, I don't think much would get done unless we really did have strong committees and chairs driving, like that was their only priority. If you had a committee or a working group for each one of these ovals, you might have more success if they were dedicated to that one thing. I think dedication to one single focus is really where you can have the most efficacy.
Yeah, I also agree. So yeah, again, I cannot really talk from my experience, so I'm quite new in the field to make some strong statements about this. So I tried to summarize some things where we should focus on, but I agree that it's not feasible to do this all at once. So we can break this down in different parts and create task force working on this. So I think it's also important we give a lot of information and we all know what we want. And I think, how do we act on this? And I think on the short term, maybe, yeah, we have to talk about those task forces and think about and let them meet and see how they think about how to organize a few things. I mentioned a lot of things, but the purpose is also to initiate like a discussion or a brainstorm on the most important things, what you think from the audience and the people that have the most experience in the field. What is urgent? And like funding came up yesterday a lot of times, also today. The collaborations, the collaborative networks, it's very difficult now, I'm talking for the research, to find funding to do research, but also to find funding for the clinical trials, for example, for the CMT nets with the phospholipid therapy. So it's also a little bit to get input from the audience, the experts. What is from this list, what is the most important to work on in the next year or the next upcoming years?
Ingo.
Yes, thank you. I'm very impressed of all the three interventions. So first one showing a little bit what is needed. The second one, what an example of what is already on the way or is done, and the creation of an association or putting that into the form of an association in Germany is an interesting also model for and point of discussion how we could put the two things together then. And the third one, the visions, the proposals, the ideas, what in future could be the form, the institutional structure, and also the tasks of a association. So I'm really pleased and very happy to have all these ideas and information now. Of course, it is overwhelming, and to try to understand how to do all that thing which is now on this picture, for instance, in reality. So one of my questions would be to Lisa Reinecke. From her experience, already the German CMT net is doing a lot of things, and she showed all these kinds of organizations with which they cooperate. This is now, for me, on paper. My question to Lisa would be, what about the practice? How does it work in reality and in practice? What are the difficulties which we, perhaps in creating this ECRA, we should avoid by a different kind of organization or structure of the thing? So this is one question. And another one, a very specific question to Tim. You talked about a scientific committee and an advisory committee. Is there really a difference? And what is the difference in composition and in the missions of the different committees you talk about? Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. The examples are a little bit given next to the name of advisory boards, which includes all stakeholders. They are contributing, but also the experts, patients, associations, and MEAs. For the scientific committee, we really focus on the task force and like focusing on the basic and translational research and the clinical trial readiness. And this was also a suggestion of Sabrina Sacconi, actually. So I provided these things, but she put this in a schematic. But it's an idea how it can be, but there's always room for improvement and changes. And
Thank you. There was a question to Lisa.
So this is indeed a difficult question. I mean, after the funding period, can you hear me? Yeah. We try to maintain everything, and in the last years we primarily focused on clinical studies to coordinate them and to have them in Göttingen. And now we want to create this association. It's really this year on the plan. And now we also, with this meeting now, for us, a kind of kick to go on and focus on our projects. And to, I mean, we have contacts, but we need to further build on these. This is the current problem for us.
Okay.
Yes, I would like just to comment, maybe it can be explained better by Vincent, but we have been now more than 30 years working together in some way on CMT in Europe. When we started to meet in Antwerp, and before Antwerp, we have had generated a lot of knowledge. It's a lot of, not only here in our European teams, but also American teams and elsewhere. But after that, we have had not a general structure at the European level to collaborate in some way. But it's quite normal, this. And also, Vincent mentioned yesterday that we try a lot of times to get funding from the different calls from the European Union, and has not been possible. I think no one, just the first one that we have to fund in the Antwerp meetings, but nothing else after 30 years. Why? Maybe because Charcot-Marie-Tooth is even being the most prevalent neuromuscular disorder, even having not only the typical CMTA, but we have very aggressive forms of Charcot-Marie-Tooth disease. But I mean, the life is still going on, and they are not so severe to condition a very bad prognosis. So maybe it's from maybe I'm wrong, but it's the first time that it's presented something to create a research association related to CMT and genetic neuropathies at the European level. And maybe in some way we have to try to do something in this. The major point is how to fund it, this is the problem. And yes, the sustainability is really complicated.
You can do a wonderful organization, but if you are not able to maintain it.
Yeah, this is the point. But Angelo,
no way out.
Just a comment, but after 30 years, we have to do something.
I'm sure about that.
Different.
I will retire in 3 years, so I need to do something before then I retire. Some suggestions, very, very quickly. For example, thinking to an overhead from the different projects. I mean, you get a project, I get a project. 10% goes to the general organization. A fee, the general organization helps you in writing a European project, but for a fee. So I think we should come out with some ideas about how I don't think that the patient association is enough. I mean, it's great, of course. And the work by the patient association is absolutely great and very important, but it's probably not enough. So, and then what Teresa said, how can we put with our general neurology, commitments also this? I agree with you. I absolutely agree with you. We have, stroke, we have multiple sclerosis to take care, and so on. So this is something that we have to think about. But maintenance should be thought, and some way organized by a central, advisory board or something like that.
Ingo?
Yes, if I may, just an idea I had when I thought about our organization, what could be the missions, and funding is a priority, of course. And as in opposition or different from the American patients organizations, we have no money, and the member organizations have little money. So we cannot compare that. So we cannot fund, as a patients organization, we cannot fund all the research efforts. But what we could, in the framework of such a European expert or research organization, is coordinating the funding applications, for instance, to the EU, EU for Health, the program, I think it's something like 8 billion euro. Of course, it's not only for CMT, it would be nice. But to get the money from Brussels, it is extremely difficult. And if you sit together and have a wonderful project, is no chance at all to get the money from Brussels because you lack expertise in funding applications. And there are companies, there are experts around Brussels sitting making a lot of money by just helping you drafting the right way to make your application. And they will get up to 20% of the money of the funding later, of the grant. But it's worth it because the 80% is for the research. And the EU accepts this kind of assistance. So what I think an important part of the effort of the ECRA could be to have this kind of assistance to funding applications, expert, and we would have to buy the expert. But this investment, buying the expert, is worth it. And that could be perhaps be funded by the patient organization, which is a modest, it's sort of a, we called it in the framework of the internet development, they talk always of, it's like, I just forgot this. I give you the expression later. I forgot it at this time.
So it's a full-time job to try to raise money. And so Stefan, I think you.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Incubator. Incubator. You're making babies, kind of funding grants.
So I would say Ingolf is right that you should think very pragmatic. Like if you need funding, the funding glues people also together. And the EU is great. They like to fund multi-country consortia. But you got to be super pragmatic about it. You have to, I mean, this is great. But then the next thing is for these are academic consortia, right? Who is really in and willing to put in work in the beginning for free? Who's going to be the leader or the two leaders? You know, that's a tough discussion, but there has to be one or two. And then you have to prepare for it at least a year. I don't know what the timeline is for this EU investment that's coming next year or so. So you have to, they're classic things, right? You have to demonstrate in the best case that you can work together, that you have a track record together. This is good, this already counts as track record, right, this meeting? But it has to be more, right? Obviously, publications and some of this exists already, so that maybe determine who's going to be leading this. I would talk to other successful people like Dissolve RD, that some of you, I'm sure, are part of. Like, how have they done it? You know, there are people who have done it. But there have to be maybe not more than 5 people who are really willing to lead this thing, and the others accept that they will follow, and be strategic to prepare for this big opportunity. So, and focus. Yeah, I agree. Focus.
React on Ingolf. I think for the support, we can also, everybody of us can apply for grants on national level. But I think crucial is that we can meet together. What I mentioned also during my comments and what was perfectly mentioned by your colleague, like it was in Antwerp, to make even some unofficial consortium to be able to meet regularly every year in such a frame. It was fantastic, and it initiated many collaboration and project to all this exchange. And so I think this is one of the priority what you mentioned, that maybe to try to start on that, to continue such meetings, and I know, no, but it's still, I think it's still less. It can be not in such expensive hotel. It can be somewhere outside smaller city. but to know that this will continue, and it's still much less money than to get a grant for big research, not so can be.
Maybe the overhead could be from the administrative standpoint of maybe having an overhead from the different groups who are getting grants. In order, I mean, for the group, it's very important to be part of this, but you have to contribute to this. So an overhead could be an idea, but you have to have an organization, an administrative organization where the overhead can go. Otherwise, I don't know how can I, give the overhead to whom can I give the overhead? So from the money standpoint, could be a possibility.
I'd like to jump in while we're changing microphones for a second and give a little bit of context. So I'm American, and I understand that Americans are very philanthropic. So I'm going to kind of say that there's a part of a culture that I've experienced that may or may not be translatable to Europe or maybe even the rest of the world. I don't know. But I have been raising money for 20 years, and I was lucky enough to be able to take my experience of raising money and bring it to the CMT community. And what I have found is that money is a tactic. Money is not the goal. Money is a tactic. And in fundraising, whether it's from a government agency or whether it's from a philanthropist or whether it's from a small group of people, is what is the impact of the dollars going to do? What's that going to make? And if you can build the case for what that dollar is going to accomplish, and I think, again, what we saw out of Germany, we saw what those dollars accomplished. That was so tangible. And then with here, what we're seeing is what we want to accomplish, but it's huge. If we were to show this, and I know that's not the proposition, but it would be like, wow, what are we doing? But if we could tangibly show what those dollars will accomplish and how that will lead to therapeutic treatment or development and approvals, let's be honest, that's what we all want, therapeutic approvals. If we can build a direct line, then we can raise the money. I think the money follows. It's going to take a group of volunteers to get together and say, without money, what do we want to accomplish? And then we can go raise the money. Yesterday we asked the question, out of all the challenges in CMT, what's the one you want to accomplish? And the answer was money. Now, money is the tactic. Money is what we deploy to accomplish the goal. So I think, and again, this is my naive American, maybe myopic opinion, but I think if we start back with what do we want to do, then we can go say, well, how much is that going to cost and how are we going to get it? I want to make sure that we're leading with a horse and not with a cart.
I want to say Susan is an absolute professional fundraiser. She has raised millions of dollars, and maybe sometimes this is not appreciated. Fundraising, that's what I learned in the States. It's a professional activity. It's not a pastime. It's not I want to do good. It's super hard work. And you have to get professionals to it. You have to find the right people to do it. It's bone hard work, but it pays off, and it can be done. I'm sure it can be done. This is Europe. This is the richest continent on the planet, maybe after America. But there is money here. We just have to find it.
Vincent, you're
Hi, so my name is Mary and I'm originally from London, but I lived in America for the last 18 years, so I can get the American thing. My daughter was born and raised there. Margaret was diagnosed in South Brunswick, New Jersey. But obviously I know all of you guys have CMT, but there was no mention of 4C, and I spoke to this lady behind me, she has 4H. And I feel sorry for her and me because I traveled all over the world. I left my husband, I done anything for my daughter. So I want you guys to understand where I'm coming from. Can you mention all the 4C? And obviously it's not you guys' fault, I'm not taking anything, but it's extremely hard. I'm looking at her, She's probably embarrassed by me at the moment. But so I've got teenage issues, but what I want is it's the government, it's nothing got to do with money, because money is everywhere. You can get money out of anywhere. So where can we get this money from? Where can we get this gene therapy? Because I know the gene therapy. My brother's baby had SCID, severe combined immune deficiency, in Great Ormond Street, and he got a cure. He got it. So why can't they do it for CMT? With all the cases, CMT1, CMT, any of them. Why can't they do it? Because it's all got to do with dollar signs and pound signs. So, like, moving forward, like, what are we supposed to do? It's all got to do with money. That's the reason why there's not a cure. There's a cure for cancer, but they won't give it out because the government wants the population to die because there's too many people in the world. If you put your heads together, that's all what it boils down to, is money. That's exactly what it is. And thank you so much, especially this little person. I spoke to him for about an hour yesterday, and he's researching. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. And he doesn't have any family with CMT, and he's researching. And thank you so much for all of you guys that's researching CMT. But I'm going to be a speaker. I'm going to have to do something. I'm literally am. So, sorry if I'm annoying. That's it.
So a few reaction and comment. First, yeah, money, that's a huge question. You know, EFM Teleton has been fundraising a lot of money in the last 30 years. And I have to agree that money first is needed, but still very good projects are needed. Because usually we receive a lot of applications where people just ask, could you give us money for our pathology? If there's not a strong project behind it, there's no reason to put the money. So still, first you need to build projects, build network, build a strong, tangible result or impact, and then I agree, you usually can find the money to fund it. Second thing, changing my hat, I heard that, yeah, meeting regularly, even in small meetings, was very important to actually build this kind of task force, identify the goals, build a group of people who will be able to collaborate. So I repeat my invitation. ENMC, European Norms Class Center, is here to help. Don't hesitate to submit application for this. And Vincent, who is in our scientific board, knows about it. He can help building the...
You can find folders on the desk. I put some folders.
Yeah, so you can discuss with Vincent on how to write this application.
Folders for patients, for scientists, for clinicians. Please take it. It's on the desk.
And
I also have the e-report with me.
Yeah, and last one, as you know, I saw several times a reference to European Joint Programme for Rare Disease. As you know, the funding from this European consortium will finish at the end of 2023. There are a huge number of meetings right now. I spend my days doing that, working on the next step, which will be the Rare Disease Partnership. And a huge difference between the European Joint Programme and the ERD partnership will be that in the European Joint Programme, you only had the joint transnational call for fundamental research. In the new ERD partnership, there will be a brand new part, which will be called Clinical Research Network, where first, lots of these tools and questions and standards will be worked together for all rare diseases, but more importantly, there will be dedicated calls for this clinical research. So have a look at that once it's made public, but you will be able to find European funding not only for fundamental research, so all the basic and translational research in your graph, but hopefully and fortunately, we will also have European funding for the second column on clinical trial readiness.
Vincent.
Yes, just a comment on SOLVRD. So you know that we are part of SOLVRD. SOLVRD will end this year. We got a prolongation of 6 months because of COVID, but then it's finished. So we have huge amounts of data in Barcelona available to scientists, but there is no funding to continue. So the only way is to raise at the EU level possibilities to continue such projects, continue the ERNs, etc., but also to try to lobby at the European level, and that's really, really crucial, the lobbying. and to get access to the money. And I agree with the opinion of the CMT Research Foundation US or the CMTA Foundation US that we need also to be really critical and to choose which are our priorities. Which project do we want to fund, yes or not? Because in CMT, we are still not very well recognized in the rare disease group. That's true, that's absolutely true. But we should also think and follow what Alexander is mentioning, that we should join all rare disease efforts also to get access to funding, because as CMT alone, it will never work, to my feeling. And to be honest, and so many of you know that indeed we managed to get the European project many years ago. You remember that we tried to reapply. We were 116. We needed 116 signatures. Yeah. Unfortunately, we used the wrong page to put a signature. We signed a contract form instead of the contract negotiation form. And it was on the right-hand side, I remember very well, very small letters in that form. It was seen by more than 60 universities. And nobody saw that we were using the wrong page. You remember? And we missed, so this grant, the grant was like a staple like this that I prepared together with many of you, a pile of this, and it was just thrown into the basket because we used the last wrong page. So, and I agree, we need actually, and I don't want to give my conclusion session because I have to do it also anyway later on, but I think we need somebody also to take the initiative, to take the first draft of this type of new applications. And given my age and my health conditions, I'm looking forward to young people to stand up and to take over our old generation of scientists and clinicians sitting here in this audience. We need to find young people who can take the lead for the future. So this is very, very important. Also, patients should be involved, young people. But I'm now giving almost my conclusions, but that's not good. So I will keep it for later as well, because the others are still in the other meeting room. So okay. So that's what I wanted to say.
So you're not thinking of me?
Depending how young you feel, of course.
Thank you, Vincent. That was a point I wanted to raise in the structure. Probably it would be good to have senior and junior members, like working together with pairs of people. Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Yes, I would like to mention something related to the public foundation by the European Union. And you know that most of the focus now is not CMT or another kind of diseases. It's rare diseases is the major focus. So we have to compete in a good way in the field of rare diseases. That is good. Until now, what we have had in that way is the European Joint Program on Rare Diseases. That was the continuous of the ECRA 1, ECRA 2. And now, a couple of days ago, I answered the survey of the new agenda of the Rare Disease Partnership, because it's going to change the European Joint Program in that way. I don't know exactly how it's going to be structured, but until now, what we have and the information we have, how we have participated, has been in a very bureaucracy way. Only 6 or 8 labs from 6 or 8 different countries, at least 3 countries, working in that, in the application, and so on. And always the money was coming from the national bodies, with very complicated, in some ways, complicated. Vincent mentioned, has mentioned the situation between Flanders and Wallonia in Belgium, and only Flanders was participating on only one project. So it's really very complicated to use not only science and clinical trial application and in the project. It's that you have to manage the national agenda that sometimes is really very complicated. I try to participate and really participate in another project now, but just a collaborator, because we have to have people coming from primary care research groups, and we have not any primary care rule for the application that I'm talking about. So it's not possible to work in that application as a partner, just as a collaborator, not receiving money. So one of the things, and I think one of the things that could be done by patients' organization is fighting against this Brussels bureaucracy for the clinical grant, for the grants application. I mean, I know that it's really very complicated, but I cannot understand in a European Union that we try to be in an union, how we are still working in this way at member states, that I know the money is coming from the government, national governments, but not in this way, not for rare diseases. Maybe for other things could be, but not for rare diseases, because the patients are distributed all Europe. So we have to answer the need of patients distributed, not locally located. So this is something that could be done. Maybe it's possible in Gulf.
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure if patients' organizations are organized to be so strong in fighting this war to the governments and the bureaucracy, which is increasing, of course, and many jobs are there in question. If we ease the bureaucracy, many people will lose their job. Yeah. Shouldn't we be sad with this idea? No, let me be serious. Now, what I found is that in question bureaucracy, now for the EU for Health program, there are national institutions created, which the mission of which is to assist your applications. And I was about to use this also for financing this conference, but finally we had enough money and we did not need this because it's a big amount of work in addition. So we could fortunately have the EGPRD support, and I thought that's enough for this. But let us, as a first attempt, perhaps for one pilot project, which we might conceptualize, put together in a sort of pilot project of the ECRA or whatever, be pragmatic. Have a first joint project and try how useful these national advisory institutions are for getting the money from Brussels. That is, just try. I believe they were very cooperative when I got in touch with them, and they say, yes, we have an offer for support of these kind of things. Yes, come and talk with us, okay? So they are open, so they are not overworked yet, okay? That's our chance. Second thing is, yes, CMT is a rare disease, and we should look at the rare disease initiatives of the EU, because that's the point. When you remember the introduction of the Commissioner Kyriakides, she almost did not mention CMT, but she talked about rare diseases. And I was trying to get her here, and she was unfortunately not ready. She had other business, like commissioners or politicians sometimes have. But I tried to make clear that our initiative here, with the ECRA and with the data management issues, etc., it could be taken for rare diseases as a pilot, as a model for other rare diseases, because we are one of the most frequent rare diseases. Okay?
Not a rare disease, because it's
no,
frequent
well,
than 1 to 2,000.
Okay. But yeah, we still are a rare disease. So let's take this as a model, because it's the first time that patient organizations, with the researchers, with the scientists, with the clinicians, etc., work together and try to sell this as a model, and then continue. Perhaps we give advice to other rare diseases to make the same thing. So in some way, I was surprised myself that they reacted finally and said, yes, we will contribute at least by a video message. That was nice. Of course, not really useful, but as a kind of recognition, a political highest level recognition, I think it is very important, because now we can refer to this when we ask for support for other projects, that the commissioner even gave us a video message and supporting this way what we are doing.
The last sentence was, you can count on my
Yes.
support. This
Yes.
was the last sentence.
Yes, we will quote her. Okay? Thank you. Yeah.
And we have recorded that.
We have it
I think we need to bring it.
on paper.
I think we need to bring our discussions to a close there. It's been a very interesting discussion, and I think there's certainly the willingness and the enthusiasm and the need to take this project forward. So I'm looking at Ingolf to see if he's going to be doing the next steps, but I'm sure after this conference we will find a way to put the first steps in place and move on. Well, we put the first steps in place by being here. So more power to your elbow, I say. Thank you everyone for your contributions. It's been a really good discussion.